Kevin Kuja, fierceandmighty.com. Relentlessly push yourself forward. And time for another video, this time on a gloriously sunny Sunday, as we are now officially in the spring, despite the fact that here in New England the weather would seem to suggest otherwise of late, with the first day of spring getting more snow. So, not ideal. What I was thinking a little bit about this morning is something that I saw in a Tai Lopez video. Ty's an interesting guy in the sense of a lot of the ideas that he has on life improvement and entrepreneurship and all the rest of that. And the guy's a completely voracious reader. And it was in an email as part of one of the newsletters he sends that talked about the two things that seem to improve upon people's lives the most, and have the chance to cause the most true happiness, I guess is probably the best way to put it. And they had to do with your intelligence and your willpower. Now, on intelligence, there's probably only so much that can be changed, is the argument he made. And that seems to be pretty true. I mean, there's probably ways that you can make yourself a little bit more knowledgeable and give yourself a broader perspective, which I've always been a very big proponent of. But your actual IQ, I don't know. There's probably some ways to improve it, but that seems like it might be a little bit more set. But willpower is an interesting one. And willpower is an interesting thing because I think a lot of times people tend to think of willpower as something that at some fundamental level is a inherent character trait, and if you don't have it, it's an inherent character flaw. And what was interesting is that he was talking about the book, which I really wish I could remember off the top of my head which book it was. The interesting thing he was talking about with that book is that the thing that seems to detract most from any individual's willpower is stress. So if you're looking to make the most amount of chance to make improvements, you need to reduce the stress to improve willpower. And it's something I could not agree with more strongly, because if there's anything that I have noticed for myself personally is anytime I'm going through more stressful periods in my life, it's really, really hard at times to maintain willpower, because the way I've heard willpower described is sort of like a glass. And at some point, the ability to respond to things as the glass gets fuller gets more difficult. And until you're able to reduce the stress in that glass, it becomes very, very challenging to sort of stick with things. Because at the point at which you've just sort of gotten yourself completely exhausted, how willing are you, or how able are you really going to be to respond to things that are just going to draw upon you to do more, give more, be more? So I've always found that to be a very interesting thing. So in those moments, and I find it to be a self-perpetuating cycle for a lot of people, sometimes for myself, that when you're in those moments of just so much stress and so much, just really need to dig down and fight, you actually have less to draw upon because you just have been possibly for so long just so tensed up and ready to just do battle all the time. And because of that, you have less to draw upon. So for me personally, it's been trying to develop the really good habits of late of what are the things that sort of reduce the stress consistently. What are the things I could do to make myself feel calmer and more centered? Whether it's just more reading, more writing, trying to get better about actually meditating. I've been meaning to do that a lot, and I've just been so bad about getting there, and I've been so bad about getting to yoga, which for me personally has just such a profound effect on keeping me very much down the center. So I thought that was interesting because I think it is one of those things that people tend to look at your willpower or your resiliency or your dedication or your discipline as being things that are, they are positive character traits, but almost in a way that if you can't just grind through everything, no matter how much gets stacked up on top of that wall in front of you, then somehow you're flawed, somehow you're less than worthy, and somehow you're weak. That's pretty dumb. So I think that's something for everybody, and it's certainly a lesson for me personally, because I think about these things a lot as to advice I give to somebody like you. How would it apply to me, or what are my own shortcomings related to that? It's the stress. So if you are finding certain things to be a little bit trickier, and you don't find yourself digging down and giving yourself the levels of discipline and willpower that you feel that you need, stop thinking so much about the fact that maybe there's something wrong with you outside of, are you having too much stress, or you're not doing a good enough job clearing it out when you do have it? And that's probably the big thing for me. So Intelligence, IQ, plus willpower equals greater potential for life advancement and happiness. Definitely a believer in that. Also a big believer in, gotta kill that stress off. Gotta kill that stress off. So, today, on this beautiful Sunday, that's going to be my goal. To go out, spend time with friends, and find good ways to reduce the stress. So, Kevin Kuja, fierceandmighty.com. Relentlessly push yourself forward.